This is another live radio link-up brought to you by the Government Communications GCIS.
The time has gone 20 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you and welcome to our broadcast brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, in partnership with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. This is the second Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights show. My name is Karabolans Stol Saba Pedil Batebele Katabela Hobalo and Namajimanga Lohono Rawama Lorena Muchili Chimukashon Yarena Yona Witisha Jakabaha Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, Ramogole Horea Tokalicho Peli Yamolau Teo, the Justice and Constitutional Development in English. Shawamungela now Letu Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, Nomyango with Justice and Constitutional Development, Kamalango Karabalans, Sizowa Sonke, Zuksha Uhora Shakalumbili. Joining us, we are very pleased once again to be joined by Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Minister John Jeffrey. And he said to me quite earlier on that, hey, look, after the successful one that we had, I thought, let me bring in a couple of my guns. See, and you'll see, we'll tackle these issues. And he really kept his word, because joining him as well is the Senior State Law Advisor from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. His name is Grafni Seleka. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear you speak any language of your choice, by the way. If you want to speak with us in English, Praat Samanons, Afrikaans, you can do that, and you can speak to us in any of the Nguni languages. You're more than welcome to do that. Should we, by any chance, not able to understand you, we might ask you to translate in English, but to the best of our ability, we'll try to really help you. But you are welcome to speak to us in any language of your choice. Now, here's an invitation to you as a listener to take part in this show. You can do that by calling us with questions or comments on our toll-free number, which is 0800 142 446. Let me repeat that number again. There's a 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. You can check us out on Facebook as well, at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Tweet us on Twitter at DOJCD_ZA. That's DOJCD_ZA. You're also welcome to chat to us, as I said, in any language of your choice. Big question. What are we talking about today? I'll tell you just now. But I'll tell you what we spoke about last week. Last week we tackled quite a number of issues. In fact, what we're doing is just to paint the picture as far as what the department is all about, their mandate, what they can help you with. And we touched on several issues. We had quite a number of comments really that coming from listeners, and quite a number of questions via Twitter, via Facebook, as well as via telephone line. And we'd like to encourage you to do the same again this evening by being in touch with us. So thank you so much to all who took part last week. Thank you so much to our partner radio station, quite a lot of them. I'm not going to mention all of them, but as I'm just going through the list, in the Western Cape, the one that I'm seeing right now, Namakwaland is Bonele, Whale Coast joining us. In the Northern Cape, we've got Riverside, NFM, as well as Kurara. Eastern Cape, thank you so much to Vugani FM, Fort Bay, Kucha, Free State, Naledi, Muteo, Sitsoto, KwaZulu Natal, Good News, Zululand, Inanda, Mpumalanga, Mesh, Bushback Ridge, Barberton. Alpha is also joining us. Thank you so much for that. In Limpopo, Muhudi, Mala FM, Butlokwa, as well as Dubatse, Gauteng joining us. Eldos, Impact, Soshanguve, West Side, Northwest joining us. Ahang FM, as well as the other stations like Boletlabile, Bovilta, Bovalta, and Village, and so forth. Thank you so much to you guys for the wonderful work that you're doing. Now that I've got that out of the way, we're going to deal with issues now. My producers are always this time I'm not going to comment about them. So let's jump into the issues quickly. We are talking about one of the most important things that you, as a listener and as a South African citizen, you must be familiar with. And I'll tell you why. Because this will help you as you live your life as a South African. It'll give you direction. It'll tell you exactly where the country is going and how things need to be done in South Africa. What is that? It's definitely not my mathematics textbook. It might look like it, but it's not. It's the Constitution of South Africa. And that's what we have in our hands in the studio. Quite a number of copies have been printed out, and my colleagues are going to have one. I'm going to make sure of that. And tomorrow morning, I want answers. I'll give them a taste this evening before we go home. But to explain a little bit more about this wonderful thing that we have, it's been said that is the best in the whole world, the Constitution of South Africa. Deputy Minister Jeffries, maybe just elaborate for us, what is the Constitution? Not necessarily of South Africa, but what is a Constitution?
Thanks, Karabo. The Constitution is the main law of the country. So it's really, if you look at a human body, it's like the skeleton. And it sets out the main principles according to which the state is to be governed. It provides the legal foundation for the existence of the Republic of South Africa. It sets out the rights and duties of its citizens and defines the structure of the government. It's been called the birth certificate of a free and democratic South Africa. So you will have the Bill of Rights, which is the rights accorded to the people living in South Africa. You will have sections dealing with Parliament, the executive, provincial governments, traditional leaders, local government, and so on. The police, you would find provisions relating in that. No other law may conflict with the Constitution. So any law that Parliament passes, somebody can go to the Constitutional Court ultimately to say that that law is unconstitutional, and the Constitutional Court would have to rule on that. So that's in brief would be the Constitution. In brief, the most important law of our country, the framework of all our laws.
Dr. Seleka, when we're talking about the preamble, which is one of the first things that you come across the Constitution, or the book itself as you page through, there's a part about the preamble, one of the most important things in there. Do you want to just take us through what the preamble is all about? And maybe what I'll do is I'll read the first 5 lines of the preamble just to familiarize the listeners to it.
Thank you, Karabo. The preamble is a brief introductory statement. It gives a sort of a sideline on how the setup of the Constitution and how it addresses the past that South Africa has really been into. It sets out the guiding purpose and principles of the Constitution. Chapter 1 enshrines key constitutional principles, and because they are so important, they are more difficult to share. It sort of gives us the guidelines, the history of the country, and also the guiding principles within which the country is being founded.
Right. For anyone to know where they're going, they got to know where they come from, or at least where they start.
Yes.
Chapter 1 deals with that, and we're going to touch on that. I feel it's important that maybe we focus on Chapter 1, because then we'll give us an overview on that. But as I said earlier on, that the preamble, one of the first things that you're going to come across as you page through the Constitution, the first 5 lines reads as follows. It says, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity." Now, there's a key point there, or a key word which speaks about diversity. When you've got a diverse society, you're always bound to come across some of the some challenges, really, because then we're talking about culture, we're talking about religion, we're talking about health, and maybe educational status as well. Chapter 1, does it give us an oversight of those few elements that I've just mentioned, Mr. Seleka?
Yes, Karabo, it did. It says that the Republic of South Africa is a sovereign democratic state founded on the following values. These are the values that really found the Constitution. It's the baseline of the Constitution. And hence, in terms of really amending this particular section, there's been strict measures that's been put in place in terms of Constitution to ensure that they are not really amended easily.
What would it take legally? You mentioned in this for the second time that it's not easy to amend it, which tells me that it can be, though it's not easy.
Yes.
What would it take for that to be amended? What is it that one can see for this, or one can come across for this to be amended?
You mean how it must be?
If we were to amend,
yes.
if we were to amend, what would it take?
The constitution requires that it needs a supporting vote of at least 75% of the members of parliament for it to be amended. And also the NCOP as part of the other house of parliament, it needs at least 6 provinces to ensure that there's a supporting vote for the constitution to be amended. 75% of the members and also 6 provinces out of the 9 provinces for section 1 of the values, the values of the constitution to be amended.
0800 142 446 0800 142 446. You can tweet us as well at DOJCD_ZA, at DOJCD_ZA. Otherwise, you can check us out on Facebook as well. You're more than welcome to hook us up there at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Joining us in the studio is people who are definitely going to help us to understand the Constitution a bit better. I'm talking about Deputy Minister John Jeffrey as well as a Senior State Law Advisor, Mr. Griff Niseleka, making sure that we understand what the Constitution is all about. When I'm looking at Chapter 1, I believe it's Section 3. Now, we're going to learn how to also mention these things. I've always heard people talking about Chapter 1 section so much. And maybe that's something that we're going to learn. And maybe DM, you can jump into this as well. Would I be correct to say Chapter 1, Section 3 talks about citizenship?
That's correct, yes.
Tell us a little bit more about Section 3 of Chapter 1.
Look, it's a very simple section. There's a common South African citizenship. All citizens are equally entitled to the rights, privileges, benefits of citizenship, and equally subject to the duties and responsibilities of citizenship. And then that national legislation, so there must be a law of Parliament, must provide for how you get citizenship, how you lose it, and how you can have it restored. This was quite an important provision because remember, before 1994, you had the government could effectively deprive you of citizenship. It set up homelands and tried to make them into independent states, and the people living in those areas effectively lost their South African citizenship. So it's a very important clause, and that's why it's one of the founding provisions.
So there we go. That's Chapter 1, and we're not going to go through all of it, but I just wanted to touch on a few. Now, if you read Chapter 1, you will realize that further on it speaks about the national flag. Geez, you can go find out a little bit about the national flag. It speaks about the national anthem as well. It speaks about languages, which is important. A lot of people have asked me, yeah, but we always hear you on the show, man, and isn't it confusing? But if you look at it, it's actually based on the Constitution itself, that when government communicates, it needs to make sure that it communicates in all the languages. Hence, I'm inviting you as a listener to join us by way of telephone 0800 142 446 and speak in any language of your choice. You see, we're not going to say no because if maybe you would like to speak to us in any of the Nguni languages, Stonga, Istxhosa, any of those Nguni languages, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll be happy to hear from you as well. 0800 142 446. I believe you've got a first call on the line. It's a very good evening to you. Caller, what is your name? Where are you calling from?
Ke mohlatupa ka mona ka matwabeng Senegal ntate.
Ke thabela utlwa go wena mohlatupa. Potso ya hao re dumela.
Ntate a ke tsebe ke sa tsebeng ka ke tla be ke tswa le koteng ka jwane ke na le potso mona. Ga itsedi ya ka e kgolo ho nna. O ile a etsahala taba ya hore a etse taba ya hore a supportise ntate wa ngwana wa hae.
Okay. Kumamezin that. Okay, I think we've lost that caller there. I would like that caller to be contacted. I would like to hear from them. 0800 142 446. But, this tells me one thing. It tells me that we're looking forward to one of the biggest shows that we're going to be having, which is one that's going to be dealing with issues of maintenance. And I could hear this caller is going towards them. We're going to hear from them what they want to say. We're not going to turn them off, really. Though we're not dealing with maintenance specifically this evening, we're dealing with the Constitution. But, hey, if you'd like to ask a question, bring it in. We might not maybe go into detail on it, but we'll definitely like to hear from you. I think Ntate Inda, if I'm not, or Ntate Linda, or okay, no, that's not the caller. my producers are confusing me. Type in the name of the other producer for me to see. But nonetheless, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. And you can hook us up on Twitter as well at DOJCD underscore ZA, at DOJCD underscore ZA. Now, here's a big section which I would like you to concentrate on. This one here is going to help you. It's going to help you quite a lot. I've looked at it myself, not all of it, and I'm very happy that we're going to be dealing with it this evening. Chapter 2 of the Constitution talks about the Bill of Rights. Now, you've heard people always saying that I've got the right to do this. And other people rise up and say, well, the rights come with responsibilities. All those two things that have been spoken about, the right and the responsibilities to those rights, contained in Chapter 2 of the Bill of Rights. That is Leka? Chapter 2 of the Constitution, I beg your pardon.
Yes. Thank you, Karabo. This is one can call it the backbone of the constitutions. It contains all rights that every individual has. Immediately when you are born and you become citizen of the South Africa, then you entitled to these rights. They are not only relevant to South Africans. It's also applicable to non-nationals who are in South Africa. If I can start with the first one. Section 9, we call it the Equality Clause. It says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. It says everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Something that's very important. We had a caller last week who was talking about people who have access to funds more, people that are rich. Let me put it like that. It looks like the law caters for them more than the poor. Remember, we had that call at DM last week. Yep. Now here's a section that actually says no, it's not like that. Right? Chapter 2, Section 9 says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. So if that is Nagi, the same thing, but I'm more richer than you. It does not mean I'll get away with it, or I should get away with it. I should not get away with it. The law must be applicable the same way it is to you and to me as well. Let's take a caller. 0800 142 446. Mohlatupa Odeng. Ndate Mohlatupa. All right, I think we lost him again. 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. Chapter 2, Section 9.1, that's what we read. 9.2 continues to say, equality includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and freedoms. To promote the achievement of equality, legislative and other measures designed to protect or advance persons or categories of persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination may be taken. Very interesting. You would like to jump onto that one, DM?
Yes, I mean that's basically a provision that, and it's going back to the preamble, the divisions of the past and what happened in the past, that we haven't come from equal backgrounds. In the past, you had government basically focusing on the white people of South Africa. So they got good schooling, they got good opportunities. What that section of the Equality Clause is doing is allowing steps to be taken to advance persons who are disadvantaged by unfair discrimination in the past. So it allows for affirmative action.
Right. And things like BEE and all of that would
be
related
yes,
to that.
yes.
All right. Human dignity, that's another one. And I've just skipped on quite a number of, section 9.4 and 5, I've skipped on those, and I went to section 10 that speaks about human dignity, and it says everyone has inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected. That is a link.
Yes. This when you're reading it reminds me of that case that was sort of the talk of the town sometimes last month about the assisted suicide which went to the Pretoria High Court.
Yes.
the basis of that case was about the dignity. That means if one was to die in dignity, that was the base of the argument from the lawyer, from the late doctor who passed away during that assisted suicide. Dignity, that means it's an inherent. It says everyone has an inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected. Meaning, one can give an examples of the LGBTI persons who are normally attacked because of their sexual orientation.
Right.
It also affects their dignity. That means if maybe you attack somebody for the dignity, then it really infringes on this this particular section.
And it's quite a good example that you're showing there. In fact, talking about that case that happened about a month ago.
Yeah.
And now we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on that briefly because that showcased
Yes.
how the Constitution of South Africa works. But before we do that, let's go all the way to Maritzburg. All right, not yet. I was going to take a caller from Maritzburg. I've been told, hang on a little bit. But talking about that case, for instance, the lawyers were saying their argument, as you're saying now, coming more from a dignity point of view. But then the other parties were saying that, but hang on, the same Constitution talks about no one has the right to take anyone's life. DM, you want to elaborate on that?
I think just a general point that most of the rights would impact on other rights. And how you approach, so you can't really see a right in isolation. You'd have to look at what are the other rights that are impacting on it. So my right of freedom of expression to make a noise and sing loudly on the street may impact on somebody's right to dignity, having to listen to me, or privacy, for example. So rights have to be balanced. And so that was one of the elements of the case. The case is also interesting from another perspective in that, was it correct for the court to make a decision on that matter? A similar case went to a court in New Zealand, somebody terminally ill with I think in that case it was another form of cancer. And the court felt, no, this is a matter for Parliament to deal with because it's a huge public policy issue. So there are sections that you may say relate to your rights, and the court should interpret, but also one should look at, should certain policy decisions not be taken by the elected representatives of the people?
Freedom of expression is one big one, and I'll be honest, I'm guilty of that. That loud music in my car needs to tone down a little bit. Let's take a caller, 0800 142 446. It's gone 18 minutes just before 7 o'clock. Let's speak to Musa in Maritzburg. Good evening to you, Bob Musa. Where Bob Musa?
Hello, Karabo.
Yes, sir.
Yes, KB, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Also, I'm Prince Patrick from Fugana from the Eastern Cape.
All right, 100%. I beg your pardon, I said Musa, but it's Patrick. Thank you so much, Pat, for your call.
Yes, good evening to you, KB, and to your guest, of course, and thank you for taking my call. I've got only two questions, KB, and bear with me if I'm not pronouncing the sections of the chapters so well. I'm viewing them on the computer. I'm on chapter 7. I think it's section 159, where it talks more about terms of municipal council, and 156. It talks more about powers and functions of municipalities. I would love to give you more clarity on those two sections, because you find that most cases in local municipalities, one would wonder that there is a different constitution that is ruling the local municipalities, or maybe the South African Constitution does not have necessary powers, maybe to rule over instabilities, maybe in municipalities. So, on those two sections, 159 and 156. I'll be listening over. We're going to come to you later. Thank you very much, KB.
Thank you so much, Patrick. All right, Anonymous, are you on the line?
Hello, Ndati guy.
After Ndati.
Kiteng.
Eh.
Man, ke utlwa le go ntse ngwe botlhoka mo.
Eh.
Yeah, my question is sala ga na le incident engwe whereby ntate wa polasi la bola ya motho wa neng a sebetsa mo polasing ya gago. And case ya teng e bia ya policing and then ya seka, but e bia fela moyeng. That family ke phela le yone ke a e tseba, but case ya teng fela moyeng ga ona se sa diragala mo. How do you have that that family?
Okay, but do you have any other details that o ka re bolelang ka tsona gore what happened, how far did it get, who did they contact, that type of thing?
Oh no, case ya teng bona motho ka la bona mo polasing ya ra tsena bola ra polasi mo 20 ka tsena mo tshunta ya nna case ya teng ya khoto, but go khoto e bile na khoto. I don't have so much details because I was still young by that time. But now, what happened to our case here? If you ever fell moyeng, those people keep fairly born, nothing happened. Salaka bottle among kitchen and I felt like but I want to go to case thing. But the real be about some free. Wow, plus.
All right, we'll see how we can tackle that. Thank you so much for your call.
Okay, well.
0800 142 446. Actually, what you're actually trying to bring across here the issue, being a homosexual. When you look at the issues that race attached to that, it seems as if there's some form of discrimination that happened.
Some of the murders that went on are simply horrific. You can't even, if you watch a movie, was so.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what, Badzeba, you know what? I think we need to speak about this, and we'll definitely do that. Let's go take other callers quickly, and then we're going to come back to your question. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your story on this one. We really appreciate it. All right, 0800 142 446, Motlatupa, all the way from the Free State, if I'm not mistaken. Motlatupa, good evening to you.
Ntate dumela o kae?
Ke teng le kae ntate?
Thank you ntate.
Ke kopa o ntshwarele re ile ra kgaoga re sa bua.
Hey, ke re ke bashimane bana ka di WhatsApp ntate, mara ha ona bothata ntate.
Potso ha o reng?
Ntate ne ke botseletsa ntshenya gaitsedi ya ka mona o na isitseng ntate wa ngwana wa hae mane khotho mane re a nna ntshetse ngwana manyane nyana jwalo. Jwale letsatsi leo ba kileng ba lefuwa hore ba e khotho ka lona. O etsahala hore gaitsedi no aka a kula ska kgona ho ya moo. Matati ka mora ho mo ha saya. Ba a hlalosetswa fela hore letsatsi la na lefuwe ke lekgotla. O hlolele ho ipontsha tsa ka lona. Jwale ha o sana ntho e tla etsahala. E fedile tabeng ye. Jwale ke sa tsebeng hape nka botseletsa potsong ya bobedi. Nka botsa potsong ya bobedi ke botseletsa motswalle wa ka Mohlomphehi.
E tla le yona ntate.
Mohlomphehi motswalle wa ka o na le ngwana ya nang le bokowa. Kore ha kgone ho tsamaya hantle wa bona ntate.
Okay.
Empa o felletse ka bokowa. Jwale o kila go muisa ho tse ding tsa dikolo mane location ya ke go gona ka mapolasing. Jwale ha muisa ho tse tsa dikolo ba ga ba kekebe ba mong ka ngwane. Jwale ke botsana go tshwantse go etsagale jwang tlhentse ke tsamamela radio ya Tshabana le dintana.
Motlatupa, for having given us a call. We really appreciate it. 0800 142 446. Let's tackle the Twitter comments and questions for now, and then we'll go back to the questions that we've just noted right now. Thank you so much, Lou Wiki on Twitter. And he says, are we winning the war on crime in South Africa? And how can we as a nation speed up the process to become a peaceful, law-abiding South Africans? We'll definitely deal with that one, and thank you so much for that. The other Twitter message that I've received is from Kolani Ngwekazi, and he says, what more can we do as South Africans to teach and spread the word to all citizens about their rights and responsibilities? Now, here's a concerned South African DM, somebody who wants to bring about change in their community.
Yes, and it's quite worrying how few people have actually read the Constitution or know about it or know about the Bill of Rights. And I think that Kolani it's been very useful that he's referred to both rights and responsibilities. And we need to look at more and more ways of spreading the information. What you are, I mean, it's a radio show, but in the studio we've got a little booklet called The Basic Provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa 1996, made easy for learners. And it's the preamble, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then some explanations about what they're about, and then contact details, the different Chapter 9 commissions, Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, where you can go to. But this was given, the intention was that this was to be given to all grade 12 learners in South Africa. And so that's an effort to try and get school learners, as they're finishing school, to give them a copy effectively of the Bill of Rights. We are looking at trying to coordinate, because there are different government offices and some of the Chapter 9 institutions, the Human Rights Commission particularly, that are engaged in programs to popularize the Constitution. We are convening a workshop as the department towards the end of the month with those different government bodies and non-government organizations to look at coordinating efforts to explain the Constitution to people.
All right, and we've got Butelo on Facebook, and Butelo wants to know that, in fact, she says, the Bill of Rights state that we have the right to language and culture. And she wants to know what more can be done to sustain the usage of African languages in South Africa, including Khoi. Can more be done? Is a big question there, DM.
Look, there are 11 official languages. Khoi is not one of those 11 official languages, but the Constitution in Chapter 1, the languages section, refers then to a Pan-South African Language Board needing to be established by national legislation. And one of the things it must do is promote and create conditions for the development and use of all the 11 official languages. And then, and this is the important point in this regard, the Khoi, Nama, and San languages and sign languages. So that's a responsibility of the Pan-South African Language Board. But I'm sure that they would welcome suggestions from people like Botshelo as to what could be done to promote Khoi.
All right, 0800 142 446. Masiye KwaZulu Natal, khulume noNdima. Babu Ndima.
Yeah, hello.
How are you doing, sir? What is your question or comment?
Right. Am I on air?
You're definitely on air. Can I ask you to switch your radio off?
Yes, it's off.
100%. What is your question or comment? Thank you so much for calling.
Okay, I would like you to comment after this. Gentlemen, I'm concerned here. You know, we talk about separation of powers. Unfortunately, I don't have the Constitution with me. I lost mine. There's Parliament, there's Judiciary, and the other tier of government. I'm concerned when so much time the opposition parties go to the court fighting their political battles, just drawing in the court to help them fight their political battles. As it is now, the courts are fast losing their respect. That is why over the last week or 2 weeks, there's this talk, because the Chief Justice would want to have a meeting with the President because of now the criticism, which I'm not surprised, because they seem to be overdoing it. I know the Constitution is there, the supreme law, but if the political parties are overdoing it, the opposition, because they want to fight their political battles with the aid of the court, where does one draw the line? Yeah, I would like the gentleman to help us here. Otherwise, we are going to have more of these spats, between the executive, which is there, not by mistake, but by our vote, the courts that are running this country, which it seems to be the case, unfortunately. It's the legislature.
All right, I think we lost that caller, but we've got the gist of what he was saying, basically talking about the separation of powers, and he was just elaborating what is happening within the court at the present moment. But that's a big one, separation of powers. We're going to chat about that, and Dr. Seleka will jump into that. Let's take one more caller quickly, all the way from Mpumalanga, listening via Kanyamazane FM, and we're chatting to Defender.
Karabo, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
How are you? Karabo, my question is, if you look at the Constitution, it's a very thick document. There are any other ways and means of saying how to scale it down so that people should be able to know? Because if you look at, for example, the young people don't really understand what the Constitution is. If you look at Chapter 1, it talks about the flag and the national anthem, and you go to events, people cannot even sing the national anthem. So it's very sad as a country.
Thank you so much, Defender. We'll definitely tackle that. In fact, talking about scaling it down, we've got two different documents in the studio as we speak. The one is the actual constitution, which has got more pages, and the one was for the learners. It's called the Basic Provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa 1996. Made easy for learners is one of the ways that the Constitution was made easy for people to access it, but I'm not the one to actually talk about that. I'll give it to the guys who are dealing with that, and they'll explain it. Thank you so much for your call. Mararang, all the way from Uppington. Mararang?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, how are you, sir?
Mararang, let me ask you to please switch your radio off, because I can hear that you're waiting to hear yourself before you answer. Switch your radio off a little bit there.
Okay, it's off now.
100%. What is your comment or question?
I just want to ask about, because everybody you le gore wa tshwara o tshwanetse go remain silent. Jaanong wa ba tshwana ke go dula 48 hours mo tronkong. Fa go direga gore a dule more than 48 hours gone motho o tshwanetse gore a direng ya go fitlhele gore motho wa tshwarwa jaaka especially mo apenteng go na le batho ba le gore manna go tshwarwa ga o tshwanetse ba siwe daily go bo go ganwa ka daily ba busediwa gape ko diseleng.
Okay, we'll deal with that as well, Mararan. Thank you so much for your call. Back to KZN in Verulam. Utoli ulalele via one of the stations there in Verulam. Sitoli? Uputoli, I beg your pardon. Toli?
Toli Temba.
How's Baba?
Great, yeah. I'm listening to Izulum Zan KZN.
Thank you so much for that, yeah.
Thanks a lot, bro. Bro, I just want to, let me just highlight this as a comment and a call of concern.
Mm-hmm.
I think our constitution is based on the past laws. Now, I feel that it's disadvantaging us when we want to move forward today. I'll make an example. You are referring to Chapter 1 on Section 3, that the president then, if when selecting a national anthem, it has to be determined by the president by proclamation. As South Africans, we know there was a national anthem which was not for South Africans, but this new constitution and the democracy in the new dispensation, it then takes the wrong national anthem and it makes it a national anthem for all South Africans. I just want to quickly then jump to Section 23 and Section 25. I think both are under Chapter 2. Section 23 will be talking to the issues of labor relations, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to check, because the employees goes to strike. The Constitution does not say for them to be on strike there should be a trade union, but it refers to, it says they can participate in the affairs of a trade union. So it gives them that right and that authority to participate in the affairs of a trade union. But now when they go to strike, it has to be a protected strike, well, that you are affiliated under a trade union. I don't see a constitution deliberating much on that. Lastly,
yep.
Just quickly, Section 25, I think it talks to property. That's why when we have, I'm a member of the Economic Freedom Fighters. The issues of land in South Africa are very depressing. I think we are suppressed in talking to the issues of land in South Africa, because Section 25 does not give us the authority to take back the land that belongs to us as South Africans, as it was supposed to be reading like that. Now, it refers to the past laws that we have to, via the past laws, for us to be able to claim back our land. The issue of willing buyer, willing seller, it can never be a tool of trade that we'll use today to obtain back our rightful land to the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much concerned about as quickly that on those
three issues.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Potoli from KZN. Thank you so much for your questions. And just, somebody that understands how to peruse through the Constitution. That was just a good example of that. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. We'll get back to Octavia and Letlabile now in a short while. I just believe we've got so many questions to deal with and we're going to run out of time if we're not careful. So let's deal with these questions. Going all the way to Utlokaina or Anonymous, who spoke about a farm murder that took place and the case was sent to the police. Nothing was done about it. He wants to find out, how does the Constitution tackle this type of thing? What direction can one take as per what could possibly be indicated by the Constitution? Then,
thank you, Karabo. If I recall, the caller said the matter went to court, but he doesn't know what happened in that court because he was still young. But my recollection is, because it doesn't give the full facts of the case. How did the murder committed? But because it might be the principle says you are found guilty. I mean, you become innocent up until you are proven otherwise. You are found otherwise. Now, because we don't have the facts of the case at the moment, I think it will be there are situations where when a case is before court, then circumstances that prevail or evidence that is before the presiding officer, it's over to the one that to the victim or to the families. Mm-hmm. Then it always, because there are grounds within which a person can be found guilty or can be found guilty. Now, because of the circumstances that really prevail in that particular case, that unfortunately we don't have the facts of that case, because there might be some defenses that the accused put forward for him not to be found guilty. Mm-hmm.
We also had a caller that spoke about the issues of the LGBTI community. Batseba calling all the way from Mafikeng.
From Northwest.
Yes, and Batseba saying that they're experiencing quite a lot of torment as the LGBTI community, and picking up one area that's of concern to her, which is the issue race versus financial status. You want to jump in there, Dr. Seleka?
Then the attacks against or discrimination against the LGBTI, it's a problem in the country, but the department has established a national task team. The national task team is set up really to address all attacks against the LGBTI and to ensure that the cases that go through the criminal justice system are dealt with properly. Then recently we also established the provincial task team that really feed information to the national task team. And within that structure, there's also the rapid response team. That team, each and every time there is a case that has been reported against LGBTI, then it's reported directly to the rapid response team that comprise the NPA, the police, and the Department of Justice, and some of the CSOs that are involved in addressing the issues of the LGBTI. Immediately, case when it's reported, it's automatically sent up to the team, and then it's allocated to the local police station, local prosecutions that are really dealing with that issue. Then so far there's also 9 PTTs that has been established throughout the country to deal with it. And also there is the Constitution provides, there is a Equality Act that has been established in terms of the Constitution. The Equality Act establishes the equality courts. Mm-hmm. Equality courts are there to deal with all the discrimination that really the LGBTI and other people that really are facing. And each and every magistrate court is an equality court. Then if you feel that you've been discriminated against based on your, for instance, the sexual orientation, you can approach that particular court. And you don't need a lawyer to do that. You can also go there and approach the courts and then ask for the equality court clerks.
It's gone 7 minutes after the hour, 7 o'clock. Good evening to you if you've just joined us. My name is Karabalans. Glad to have you on the show this evening. We're chatting to the Deputy Minister of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, as well as the legal advisor, Ntate Seleka, in the studio. We're all chatting about the Constitution, one of the things that I believe is very important for us to familiarize ourselves with. Maybe DM, you want to jump on this one. Here's something that I've heard. Many other people have heard it as well. issues of, let me not say issues of, let me say separation of powers. That by itself, a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. They're hearing the words, but no clue what that is all about. You want to bring us up to speed on that?
Look, simply put, you've got the legislature, parliament, the executive, which would be cabinet, the president, the ministers, and you've got the judiciary, the judges. So parliament makes the laws, the executive implements the laws, and the judges interpret the laws when there are disputes. And then there's this doctrine of one can go into quite a lot of detail of separation of powers, that each, the legislature, parliament must has certain things that are its responsibility, the executive has certain things that are its responsibilities, and the courts have theirs, and that you shouldn't then interfere with another sphere of government, or sorry, another section of that of the tier of government. Now, the point often gets raised with the courts: are the courts going too far in terms of making policy decisions? So the example I raised, that Mr. Seleka raised earlier as well, on this case around a person wanting the right to, or not the right, wanting a doctor to help him die because he was terminally ill and he didn't want the doctor to be prosecuted. Our court supported him. A court in another country, in New Zealand, on a similar case, said, no, this is not a matter for the court to decide, this is a matter for Parliament to decide whether you should be allowed to terminate your life. Right. So those are some of the debates, but a debate currently is how far should the courts be going as far as the decisions they make when they particularly are going into matters of policy. Should those issues not be matters decided by Parliament, the elected representatives of the people of South Africa?
So that's, in a nutshell, that's what the separation of powers talks about. 3 sections of it, or 3 tiers of it, if you like to say: the legislature, the parliament, and the judiciary. Legislative, obviously, meaning law, being put in place. Parliament, the implementations of those laws, and judiciary, one could say, the reinforcement or the interpretation of those laws. Just in a nutshell, you can go read more about it. Uppington, we had a caller from there as well talking about the issues of arrest is quite a big one as well, and we're going to hear this in the next coming shows. I know there's going to be quite a few people who are calling in on this regard. The right to remain silent when you are being arrested, and the issue of spending 48 hours in custody. Dr. Seleka. Did I just put you in a corner?
Or do you want me to take it? I mean, it's
Right.
Look, it's there in the Constitution, the right to remain silent, so you don't have to answer questions from the police. They can't force you to make a statement. If you are tried for something and you've made a statement and you can show that you were actually forced to make it, that statement would get thrown out. It would be up to the presiding officer, the magistrate, or the judge to decide if that is the case. You've got the right to be brought before a court as soon as reasonably possible, but not later than 48 hours after the arrest. But if it's a weekend, the 48 hours are effectively only court days. But it's basically, again, to stop what happened in the past, where you could get arrested and you could be kept in custody for a long time
without even knowing
before being taken to court. And obviously, if you are taken to court later than the 48 hours, then there's a problem, and the police are going to have to respond to that.
Would they just respond, DM, or can that be reversed to say, okay, the police did not do the right thing, so therefore this matter has been thrown out of court?
Well, it would probably be, there'd probably be a claim of against the police for that extended period you were held in custody. It would depend on the circumstances of the case.
All right, before we take Toli's questions, let me take one more caller. They've been holding for quite a bit. It's Octavia. You're calling all the way from Letabile. Octavia? Good evening to you, Octavia.
Hi.
Yes, what is your question or comment? Very briefly, we're running out of time.
Okay, ke na le problem le ka problem ka abitwa go and then Santara L ifila batho ba leng gore ke di life party ba palla ko ba fa di parole, and then Santara if into who leader even a single person since 2010, and then they refuse to have the whole party offenders because of the institution, and I guess gore le aware gore na mo dey sa di SKP khona more close pere, and then the SKP e rile gore di offenders tse ding a itse gore ba di tsuteyang gon itse ba di betha mo gare ga beke ke re bolela yana special prison ke tse ka batho ba ileng gore ba bethile gona mo.
Okay.
Yeah. E go tsamba tlhoko ke gore batho ba di offenders di ganetswa go kwala di exam.
Okay. Octavia, basically your question is around what rights do offenders have while they're in custody. Am I correct? Okay, we'll deal with that. Because I battled to hear you while you started that. 14 after 7 o'clock. Let me ask for 5 more minutes with the stations because there's just 2 really questions that we need to tackle quickly. All right, let's tackle this one. Toli's one from KZN, DM. The Constitution based on the past. That's one thing that came out very clearly when he was talking to us, and he gave quite a number of examples. He says the national anthem, for instance, is just an extension of the past, he says. He spoke about employee strikes, the participation in the affairs of the trade unions. He touched on the issues of Section 25, where he says it does not give us the power to claim the land that belongs to the people that was taken negatively in the past. You wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he was meaning, because the Constitution is a framework, and the detail then gets worked out in other laws passed by Parliament. So on the question of the national anthem, what the Constitution says is it gives the power to determine the national anthem to the President. It doesn't say that the national anthem is our current national anthem. It doesn't specify that, a combination of Nkosi Sikelel and Istem. It just says the President has the national anthem of the Republic is determined by the President by proclamation. So all it says is the President has the power to proclaim what the national anthem of the country is. Similarly, then on the right to the labour relations section, there's the right to form trade unions, as he'd said, and participate and to strike. The Labour Relations Act then sets out how those matters interface. On the property clause, section 25 that he spoke about, the Constitution doesn't say there must be a willing buyer, willing seller. It sets out that nobody can be deprived of their property except in terms of a law of general application, and no law may permit arbitrary deprivation of property. So you can't deprive an individual of the property. Any laws relating to property must apply to everybody. And then there are specific provisions to redress the imbalances of the past. A person dispossessed of property after the Land Act of 1913 is entitled to the extent provided by an Act of Parliament either to restitution or to equitable redress, to compensation. No provision in this section can stop the state, I'm paraphrasing a bit, from passing laws to achieve land reform to redress the results of past discrimination, and provided that it must comply with the limitations clause. So the willing buyer, willing seller is not in the Constitution. It's in the land laws that give effect to this provision, and those laws can be amended.
All right. The last question came from Octavia, and something is ringing in my mind, and something tells me to say the following: they are not animals, but they are also human beings who need rehabilitation. Dr. Seleka, jump into there. And just to add a little bit, Dr. Seleka, hence we're not calling them prisons anymore. Or these are correctional services. Jump in there, Dr. Seleka.
Yes. The Deputy Minister mentioned earlier on about the rights of the accused. Section 35(2) also just provide that everyone who's detained, including every sentenced prisoner, has the right to be informed promptly of the reason for being detained. Then for being arrested doesn't mean really you're found guilty. Then there are rights that goes with that particular process. Then the caller mentioned that they are refused of. I mean, they are. It's amount to bullying within prisons. That's why most of them are really in hospitals because of there is a particular unit in the subs that deals with the behavior of the police. Then you call it the IPID. Where there are problems against the police, then they can be reported to that IPID. Mm-hmm. Then IPID is an institution that has been set up to address all rights that members of the society, including the detained, that can really approach that institution to ensure that really the brutal behavior of the police are really brought to that institution.
Do you need a legal representation to approach the IPID?
No, you don't need any. You have to have facts before you can approve them and find out who was responsible for that. Because you don't have to go to the IPID for only allegations.
Mm-hmm.
You must have the substantial information to be able to know who did that particular misconduct.
Yeah. 19 minutes after 7 o'clock, and that's how we come to the end of our broadcast this evening, brought to you courtesy of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Joining us this time around in the studio is Deputy Minister John Jeffrey, as well as the Senior State Law Advisor, and Dade Grefni Seleka. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having taken time to be with us. DM, I heard you saying you're not coming back next week.
No,
Can I change your mind?
Look, I think there will be officials who will have more details. Next week is maintenance. I'm worried that we haven't been able to respond to all the questions, so particularly Patrick, maybe if we can get his number and try and engage with him. And I think we've got to look at a way with future programs of where we're not able to give answers on air because of time, that we can find some way of responding to callers.
All right, I tell you what you can do as well. You can just jump onto the internet and look up the number for the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development for more of clarity with the issues that we spoke about this evening. And well, I can give you the number if you want. It's 012-351-1111, and that's our switchboard number here in Tshwane, in Pretoria. Otherwise, you can also take this number down to be in touch with them. It's 012-357-8130. Or 1 or 2. Now, if you want to get a hold of the South African Human Rights Commission, I saw there's quite a number of issues that came as far as human rights is concerned. If you want to get a hold of them, you can call them on this number. It's 011-877-3600. Otherwise, you can mail your complaints through to complaints at sh. Beg your pardon. That's complaints at hrc.org.za. I'll repeat that email address again, complaints at sahrc.org.za. DM, thank you so much for the past 2 weeks.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. That is Seleka. Thank you so much to all the radio stations partnering with us. Thank you to everybody that's called in this evening, all the way from Letabile, KZN, going all the way up until the Northern Province and down to the Western Cape. We really, really appreciate it. From myself, Karabolans, that's how we wrap it up this evening. Next week, we're going to be chatting about one of the biggest issues that myself and Simona is one colleague of mine from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, who's doing an absolutely amazing job amending our Facebook and our Twitter pages. Thank you so much for that big smile as well. So Simona was saying to me earlier on that the next week is going to be a big one. We're going to be talking about maintenance. Yeah. That's all I'm saying for now. Until we meet again next time, South Africa is a better place to live in since 1994. Together, let's move South Africa forward.